Hi, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. My name is Roel Dionisio, your co host for the show. And I'm happy to have on again Anil from Meter, who's going to talk about some new stuff that Meter's working on. We previously had Anil on to talk about Meter's platform and how it helps with them deploying firewall switches and access points. And it looks like there's much more new things coming out. So welcome, Anil.
Royal, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the time.
Of course. Why don't you give everybody a brief introduction of who you are if they didn't see the previous episode?
Sure. I'm one of the founders of Meter. I started with my brother Sunil about a decade ago. Fundamentally, what we've been trying to do is make it really easy for IT and technical teams to have fast, secure, reliable internet infrastructure. We believe this has to do with really great hardware, really great software, and products that integrate across all of this, and services that help with this as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I think it's a pretty cool platform that you guys have and making it easy for people to deploy networks and having this visibility of even with cloud managed devices. I think it's a great idea. But now you have something new that you're rolling out with your platform. Why don't you kind of introduce that to us and to me as well? Because I haven't seen it, so I'm kind of interested in seeing what you have planned.
Yeah, I think, we started a decade ago thinking about how do we build something that's combining products and services. But somehow in the last few years, like we talked about last time, people have said just because it comes together with products and services, you lose control and visibility. And we showed you a bit last time that we don't believe that has to be true. We think all of that can be really still be great products where technical and IT teams have immense amount of control and immense amount of visibility into the products they get from Meter. Historically, when you think about how we've all accessed networking infrastructure, has been CLI and command line. The awesome thing about the command line has always been that you can get information really fast and take action really fast. But the downside of the command line was that you had to go learn shibboleths of every single command line as you move from platform to platform, or maybe you haven't looked at something a month or two ago, you kind of forget. Last decade, things have moved more towards dashboards where it's more point and click, and you can easily get to any piece of action or information you want to take, but it takes more time than it could on a command line where I could just type a simple command, get it done. With dashboard, it might take a few minutes or 5 or 10 minutes. And then as software has moved up the stack, it's become a little bit more rigid where you have something where you have access through the dashboard, but maybe it's not exactly the way you want it to be or the exact control you want. Then you put in a feature request and the vendor looks at it and it'll take 3 to 6 months. Then they come out with it and it's like the cycle over and over again. So we've been thinking about, CLI to dashboards to what's the future, what's next for the industry, and how can we take the best parts of the CLI and best parts of dashboards, but really think about the use cases for customers, which is they want information really fast, they want to take action easily, and they want to have software that's molded around them. And so one of the big themes we've been thinking about is as software has moved up the stack, like I was mentioning, has become more rigid, but how do we make software soft again? And that's kind of the core themes and ideas of Command.
Okay, so a combination of using the GUI, the user interface, and being able to use command line together, so that way, a user of this network can avoid having to go through that process of making the feature requests and then waiting for that to be implemented.
Yeah, and then in the command line, it's great to get that information really fast, but you have to learn the command line, remember it. Now you're kind of stuck in the vendor's command line, and then you're like, oh, do I really want to move to another thing? And am I going to learn the other thing? And we've all been through there as engineers.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been through that recently. I mean, I go through that a lot, having to deal with multiple vendor equipment and then mixing those commands, right? I've used one command from one vendor and another, and then realizing, oh, I can't use that command. I'm confused now which one I'm using.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And ultimately, what is it that we're trying to provide? We want to provide fast, secure, reliable networks. At the same time, what we keep seeing is IT and networking teams are asked to do more with fewer resources than ever before. Headcount inside of companies is growing, but headcount inside of IT and networking teams is kind of flat. So, can we build products and tools and architectures where the quality of the networks they maintain goes up, but also allows them to do more? And that's kind of like the holy grail of all of this, right? How can we help our customers, which are again the IT and networking teams, be able to do those things because they're asked to do so much these days across so many different platforms?
Yeah, and I've run into situations where you just don't have the luxury of waiting for something, right? There's a roadblock there. You have to put in um, this configuration, and you just don't have that time to wait, right? And so here you're helping those network operators be more agile.
Yeah, that's right. And ultimately, I think every IT and networking team you go talk to, they just want to be able to provide great networks to their customers. And a lot of times, those customers just their colleagues that they know. And they just want networking to be good so that other people can do their job. And it's kind of like this unsung work that needs to happen.
What is it with then with a command line and then a dashboard? Um, what I'm used to seeing is if you make a change in either, one would get overridden.
Yeah.
How would you handle that type of situation?
Yeah. It has to come with what's the single source of truth. And the way our architecture is set up from our hardware to operating systems to our backend and APIs is that our single source of truth is our control plane, which is entirely online. And that's the source of truth rather than anything else. That's a huge architecture choice we've made and investments we've made in those APIs, in that ability to make those changes so that there's a single source of truth.
Okay, I really like that because it still gives you that flexibility. It's not one of those situations where, hey, I'm in a pinch. I need to push a command. It's going to be done via command line, but I just need to make sure that the GUI doesn't push a command and overwrite it.
Yeah.
But you're saying you're able to keep the best of both worlds.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I'd love to just demo the product and kind of show how we're thinking about it and really get into it. And I'd love your questions. And you've been doing networking for such a long time, so I'm glad to be able to show it to you too.
All right. So for those who are just listening to the podcast episode, if you head over to the cleartosend.net website, there is actually a video portion to this, and Anil's actually going to show us meter command.
Yeah, I'm gonna do what everybody tells you not to do in engineering. I'm just gonna do a live demo.
So this is where I say, may the demo gods be with you.
So when you come into command, you'll see kind of a new style of interface, and I'll walk you through a bunch of things. But Royal, feel free to stop me at any time, ask any questions, anything you want throughout the process. So
Okay.
first things that's new and what you can do is just like you might in Slack or Teams or something like that, just hit the @ sign and directly target and talk to a particular network, a switch, access point, client, anything like that. So here we're going to go to our primary test network in San Francisco. And I can ask some innocuous questions to start just so we can get the conversation going. Is when was the last time ISP quality was below 99%? And here you'll see, similar to command line, I'm just typing what I'm thinking, but it's in natural language. I don't have to go learn this. But command went and got this entire real-time data for me that quickly without having to go sift through all the logs when I'm looking through ISPs. But maybe I want to go a little bit deeper, right? Once I've looked at the ISPs, maybe I'm actually looking at a particular client that's connected to the network. And I'll go to my colleague Sarah's laptop and say something like, tell me about the health of this client. And
Yeah,
give me a
and just so people are when they're viewing this, Anil,
yeah.
it's slightly cut off on the bottom on my screen.
Oh, okay. Let me
I think
fix
it's a
this right now. One
windowing.
second. Yeah. Let me see.
There you go. Yeah, that's perfect right there.
Okay. Thank you. So you can go say something like directly go to this client device, which is my colleague Sarah's MacBook Pro, and say, tell me about the health of this client and give me a 5 bullet summary. There's two unique things that will happen that I'll walk you through as it's happening. As soon as I hit enter, it'll actually go look at everything. And something unique just happened to be able to go look. One is instead of again having to sift through all those logs about this wireless client, you just got a quick summary here about signal, noise, data rates, usage, and connection time entirely. So quick snapshot for the engineer to be able to understand what's actually happening with this client. The thing that's above is even more interesting is command just wrote the software entirely on the fly. And this is full usable components, just like you would expect from any engineer. And this is all real-time data here. And
Yeah, and it
maybe
was
this,
fast too.
yeah, we our goal was to be able to do this at the speed of a Google search with entire real-time data. And maybe this client is something you care about at this moment because you're debugging or making any changes, something like that. But the interesting thing about some of these interfaces is that they're very ephemeral. There's no permanence to it. And we've been thinking that's a problem as well. That's the good part about dashboards, right? There's permanence and you can kind of really have those objects there. So what if you could just pick this up and drag it over here? And this whole area is another interesting thing that we've seen customers really like is I grew up studying networking, and when you were working in the lab, you'd have other engineers kind of peer over your shoulder and say, oh, have you tried this? Or maybe that doesn't work, or can you help me with this? So this entire area here is multiplayer. Anybody can come in, work together at the exact same time, full kind of shareable. They can bring their own components that command
Okay.
wrote for them entirely on
So
the
it's
fly.
collaborative, that pane on the
Oh,
right side.
that's right. And you can kind of resize how you want it to be and
Okay.
whatever, but this is fully collaborative multiplayer section that your entire team or who you're debugging with can kind of come together and work on. But
And
command really
how would another engineer join this specific session right here?
Yep. So you go to share up here.
Okay.
You hit share. There's a link that comes in. You kind of copy that link and you can share it. And then if they have permissions to access this network, they'll be able to access it. Otherwise, they're kind of gate kept on SSO and role-based access control as well.
Okay. All right. Very cool. That's the first time I've seen something like that where you're actively troubleshooting and then you pull up, you're pulling things off of the left pane and dragging it into more like of this widget area now that's shared amongst other people if you're collaborating with other engineers. And now you're able to pull up the data that you want to keep on there and then keep running, commands that you want to issue to further
Yeah,
dive into the issue.
that's right. And these components are, again, full real-time data. As this changes, this will kind of keep getting updated. You don't have to do anything. Again, just like an engineer would write software.
Oh, okay. So if Sarah's MacBook, she picked it up and moved, then
Mhm.
these values, SNR would change, your
That's right.
data rate would change.
That's right.
Okay.
Again, just full real-time software that's being generated for you. But it isn't just about getting information, like you're saying. Usually, when you're collaborating with colleagues, it's about taking action as well. So here we can do like a fun one of something like this of create a VLAN, call it lobster, enable it, and give it this VLAN ID, right? When you do this, command will actually understand exactly what you're asking. And in that speed, actually write this form entirely, fill it out, full editable, you can make the changes. And then you can actually submit it and it'll tell you how it's going to impact the network and you can just execute it just like that after you've reviewed what needs to
Okay.
happen.
Wow,
So it's about
that's
taking any action too.
yeah. And in my role, I'm used to typing like switch port question mark, trying to figure out what
Yeah,
other commands. But you've taken it so much more further by just saying, "Hey, create a VLAN name with this name, give it this VLAN ID and this description," and now it's like, all right, here's what I'm gonna do. Look it over one more time, and then you can submit it.
that's right. And maybe you're adding a ton of VLANs because you're reconfiguring some security or it's a new network, something like that. And similar to those components, you can now just drag it over here and just leave it here. And you can just keep adding VLANs very easily. Just keep editing and adding it. And you'll start to see the themes here on what we're trying to do. And maybe it's because you added this VLAN and then you're looking at this client and you want to go back to that client and you want to say something like, hey, I actually want to understand the usage of this client. You can say something like this, and it will go gather all the information about this client and actually just write out an entire graph on the fly. Again, you can say, actually, I don't really care about it in the last hour. I'm going to care about it in the last 6 hours because something has come up. And I want to understand the real values. That's entirely generated too, of exact time you're trying to get to that value. Again, full real-time components that are usable. But maybe you want to take this a little bit further beyond getting information, taking action, and having anything generated for you. Maybe you want entire software generated for you. And you can say something like, I am a network engineer. Give me a dashboard I can share with my CTO. What we'll actually go do again at the speed of a Google search is write an entire dashboard like an engineer would. Understand what you just asked and give those high level topologies, uptime charts, active clients, and usage graphs that somebody from a C-suite or a CTO might care about. And these are, again, full usable components, just like an engineer that would write. So you have full access and full control, where like command lines, you can get information really quickly, take action really quickly. But similar to the power of dashboards, you now have a full dashboard that's generated. And similar to this canvas, when you go into dashboard mode here, you can actually just define what you want your dashboard to be and share these as well and have other people use this dashboard. Now you had command just generate entire dashboards for you instead of having to wait for feature
Okay.
requests. It can
So
be
more
exactly
permanent dashboards based on the
that's
queries you just made.
that's right. And
Wow.
other people,
Okay.
everybody can bring things into the canvas. From the canvas, you can actually create dashboards and you can create a number of them. So you can say, Wells dashboard, and then share it out, and you can build your own. At the speed of Google search, having an engineer right next to you. So we want this to be able to, again, get information, take action, and have software written for you the way you want it to be, because we want to give that power to our customers and engineers about.
Okay, that's actually really, really neat because there are different instances where you build out a network and then you have to go get an open source platform to build these graphs for you. You got to feed it in there as SNMP data or streaming telemetry, whatever, and however you want to ingest that data, and then it builds the graphs for you. But then that means that network engineer has to go learn another thing and be a sysadmin and figure out how to use these dashboards, make sure the data is correct. This eliminates all that because now you're just saying, hey, I need these graphs, and it full on programs it for you. And you're now enabling me to drag and drop it into a dashboard and say, this is my dashboard now, and then share that out with everyone. So it's basically a simple query, a little drag and drop, and you're up and running in less than a minute. It looked like from what you've shown
That's
us.
right. Yeah, this is live data. This is at our office. This is our lab network right now. full real life data at this moment.
Okay. And what other kind of filters can you provide? Because you're showing a device and it looked like it was able to pull up that device pretty simple. And I'm guessing that's more of a host name from the device
Yes,
and that's how you pull
that's
it
right.
up. Okay.
Yeah, host names, and similarly because switches might have host names too. So you were mentioning earlier on switches, maybe because you're debugging something. Let's say you're adding a bunch of things, and you actually just want um, a port diagram. So you can just ask for that switch. You've scoped it down to that switch, and it will just go actually write an entire port diagram for you on the fly. And now you're debugging, and you're like, oh yeah, I actually care about this switch. Just this is my universe right now. I care about the switch maybe because I'm adding cameras or access control or security, anything like that. So it can be scoped to any particular piece of hardware, any client on the network, just by hitting act. And we want it to be very intuitive and easy without having to learn any new kind of techniques or skills, anything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we chat today with like something like Slack and you want to ping something or someone, but in this case you're pinging things. So whether that be a switch, or AP or a device, and then you're just saying, give me this info or give me this diagram. And I think that's really cool because in many instances I've done like a migration where I need to change or move ports and I want to have a snapshot of what was active at the time, and then when I migrate, where those ports are going to go. This is kind of like a simple way to do that, especially just a nice simple diagram like this. It's useful.
Yeah, and command can do anything you're kind of thinking about on a network across routing, switching, wireless, DNS security, firewall, VLANs, without having to learn another command line, and just entirely natural language and have software written for you. So the flexibility is really incredible. Usually, when you're building software, there's two ends of barbells you have to build for. Either you're building for really technical customers or really non-technical customers. And what we found as we've been developing command is the power to be able to hit both of those barbells. So if somebody just comes in and says, I don't know what's going on, this user's complaining about Wi-Fi, tell me what to do, that's easy too. But if somebody wants to go deep in and saying, give me bi-directional firewall rules, give me this DNS security, do this, that's possible too. And what we really think about is this is the future of kind of what we hope software will become, is you have the power to get any information, take any action, but software should be written for you, the user, and it should really be soft around you and however you want it to be.
Yeah, and I really like this because it does take a lot of things a step forward because we're used to these AI prompts, right? You have a little chat box and you give it a query and it's actually pretty strict in what that query would be like, but it also cannot create graphs like this or diagrams or create a dashboard. So to be able to get rid of that extra step where someone would go to something like Chat GPT and go, give me code to do this so I can go implement it. You're just saying, hey, create this for me and it's done.
Yeah, and in infrastructure, there's two things that are very important. One is accuracy, and the other one is speed. Like you mentioned, and the folks that are listening instead of watching, all of this happens at the speed of a Google search. And we believe that's very important. And that's what was great about the command line, is when you wanted to take action or get information, it happened instantly. And the second thing is on accuracy, the way we've built the models and the way we build command is it's incredibly accurate because all it knows is meters hardware, meters architecture, and that network. So it can help the user do it. So for example, if you go say something like, buy me a pizza, normally models are rewarded just for the sake of the fact that they answer. We don't think that's important in enterprise infrastructure. We think the right answer is actually like, this has nothing to do with this network or networking in general. I have no answer for you on this. Just ask me something about networking or ask me about this network. And so we built this using our technology and our models. We are not trained on customer data at all. It's trained on our architecture and how we write software, how we design software. And we aren't just making an API call to someone and just sending everything there. This is all Meter and hosted by Meter.
Okay, so all of this is ran in your cloud. It's not ran on any of the hardware that's on site for the customer devices.
That's right.
Okay, so you could run this from, if you were completely remote from your network, you could run this. If someone were to say, "Hey, there's an issue that we're having," can you just check the status of the network? You could easily come
Yeah.
into here, build the graphs, because usually, I don't know. If I try to think of being an end user's perspective here, if a network engineer just said, "Yeah, it's fine," and it was just a simple text, I would have been like, okay." I don't know if I fully trust that. You're just saying, "Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine," but you could actually create the diagrams to support the, "Yeah, it's working fine." You can show device status. You can build the graphs and show, the SNR and data rates that are being used here, and be able to even share the dashboard and be like, "Here's the status of this site."
Yeah, and we think that's a key innovation here is that software should be written for you, just entirely on the fly. And to your point on debugging, you look at the first example we did when we asked about the health of this particular MacBook Pro. Normally, how long does it take us to go through SNR logs, go through noise levels and data rates and usage and connection times? I don't know, maybe 10 to 20 minutes to go do something like this.
Yeah, and
This
then a
happened
few
in
minutes
less
just
than
to
a second.
find the user's device.
Right. This happened entirely in less than a second. As an engineer, you can say, oh yeah, like this noise level was X and X. Maybe I should make some changes here or anything like that. But that's the power we want to be able to give the users and then turn that into software entirely the way that they want it to be.
Yeah, and I can see a lot of different ways this could be used, especially if you wanted to build kind of like a small like mini knock, right? Like you want to build a dashboard that gives you the high level overview of your network, or maybe you're managing multiple offices and you want to see the status of each one. You could really build your dashboard here, get a status of everything, keep that on a TV screen, and be able to view that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have a mode that is without any of the canvases, just being able to do that conversation. And we find this to be really useful on mobile. You might be at a server room, you might be on the go. You quickly just want the answer to something because you're making some changes. You've got a switch on one hand and you've got your phone on the other, or you're plugging in some new piece of hardware. We find that to be like incredibly useful for teams.
And how detailed can you be in this first iteration of meter command? Like if I was like in your example in the server room and I'm plugging in some network device, but it's not coming up for some reason, could I say, give me, go look into port 2 of the switch, like what's going on?
That's exactly right. You can do that today.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what's the exact I guess dialogue, the way someone would communicate with this? Is it just like how we talk to each other? Is that how the commands are done? There's not special keywords you have to add into there?
Zero special keywords. The only restriction is it's only English today.
Okay.
But you can literally just talk to it the way you would with a person, with another engineer. And that other engineer aspect is like key for us. You can say,
Mm.
hey, go tell me like what's happening on this port or something like that. Help me debug it. You don't have to learn anything at all.
Okay, I think that's a huge plus for a lot of people, especially those who might be time crunched. Because seeing you create that form to create a VLAN and all that, I can see where maybe there's an event happening, you need a test or a guest SSID, be able to just say, "Hey, create this SSID, put it on this VLAN," And then next commands could be like, all right, change this switch port with these APs to include this VLAN for that SSID, enable it, that kind of thing. It's really like talking to your network, and having some intent behind it where you want it to do a certain thing, and then being able to say, all right, well, now that I've created all this, create this dashboard, put it on my, and then you just drag all these things to your canvas and be able to see if it's up and running pretty quickly without having
Yeah.
to actually type in commands. Because honestly, when you told me meter command, I was thinking, oh, it's CLI access to all the network devices, but it's so much more than just CLI.
Yeah, for sure. And you can do anything you would with the network normally, just entirely. No restrictions. Like I mentioned, RBAC built in, so you can kind of decide who gets access. Some people might get read, some people might get write. That's your decision. But uh, really being able to make those changes, get that information entirely on the fly. Even the first example I showed you, it's like a very simple one, but how many times have we sift through logs on ISPs on to
Yeah.
exactly understand what that happened? But that
Mm-hmm.
happening on the fly at the speed of a Google search is really powerful, we feel, for our customers.
Yeah, and when it comes to the dashboards, I'm assuming you could build multiple dashboards and switch between the ones that you want. Because I can
Yep.
see individual engineers building their own. Maybe you're building a dashboard for a specific project, or CTO level dashboards, even dashboards just facing regular users. If you wanted to just show them status of the network, so they didn't even have to ask you, hey, is this AP down or this switch down? Because I'm not seeing this connection. You'd be able to show them a dashboard pretty easily.
Yeah. And we hope Command is like that on the fly available engineer for you. And it'll just do what you ask. And so if that's writing software for you, so you have a customized dashboard for you to be able to share, it'll do that. If that's sifting through a bunch of logs and giving you an exact summary, it'll do that. If it's taking a specific action instead of having to click through 4 different screens and a bunch of forms and you just want to like type it out, it'll do that. So that's exactly right. It's like having that engineer for you.
Okay, and so is this basically an AI that your network operators can talk to? Is that what this is?
We struggle a lot with using buzzwords, as you know, Roel. Um, we build models. We know they're incredibly accurate. We know they're incredibly fast, but we kind of think about it like a database. I'm not going to go try to shove my customers that, hey, I switched from MySQL to Postgres or something like that. I think what really just matters is what does it mean for me as a user? How am I better off being a meter customer? What does it enable me to do that otherwise is not possible? Here with command, I just want information really fast. I just want to take action because here's what I'm trying to do. And let's take it really far. Can I have software written for me entirely on the fly?
Yeah, I think the software piece is something new I haven't seen before with like a chat type product where I'm used to seeing, queries being made about a device or an issue or a site, but I've never seen it go to this level where you're building out diagrams or tables and then being able to drag and drop things to instantly build a dashboard. And then even having just a dedicated chat area, which is, I give you kudos there for thinking mobile, because I have used other platforms and it's like, okay, I'm not at a computer, but now I have to rotate my phone and kind of squeeze it in there somehow. And then, buttons don't show up because it doesn't fit the screen. So thank you for doing that. And I think it'll be even more useful since it has a lot more capability from just doing a simple check. You could actually have it configure something for you through the chat and then be able to review it. I think that's to me, I like the review part because, what if I messed up what I said?
Right.
And I
That's
want to be
exactly
able
it.
to go, no, don't do that. Do this. I think that's great because even I've moved quickly on configurations when someone goes, hey, this isn't working. You go, all right, let me switch it to I'll tell chat change this port to VLAN 3, and they're like,
Right.
yeah, you know what? It's not 3. It's supposed to be 300. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's good to be able to verify things and have a little window to do it for you. I think that's a good improvement for the platform, and I think your users will find that very useful. Even if it was to give or empower somebody else to do it, giving them the privileges to do it for you, and just say, hey, just type this in, and then be able to push that command.
That's exactly right. And that type of workflow thing of that's where command really came from, is being able to understand our customers that are managing complex networks, large networks across hundreds and thousands of locations. How can Meter just make their jobs much easier? And at the end of the day, provide them fast, secure, reliable networks. And one of the tenets we spoke about last time I was on your program is, how do we actually provide better hardware and software compared to anything that's available from legacy vendors? And how far can we take that? And how can we push where networking should go? And command is one of the first instantiations of it. We think this is where all software should go. But certainly we hope it's really useful in networking to start.
Yeah, thank you for that. And when you push, let's say, do these changes, and you want to make a config change to a switch or an AP, like how quickly would that change be pushed?
Instant.
Instant. Okay.
It's an
As
API call
instant
underneath.
as the next
Um,
command being verify it for me.
yeah. It's an API call underneath. That's the beauty of the architecture we built and how we built it. And entirely kind of built from being able to look at the hardware, integrate with the OS, integrate with the APIs, and integrated with applications like this we've built.
When it comes to using meter command, is that going to be available for everybody, or is that a special license or feature that they have to get in order to use it?
Yeah, really good question. We believe in continuously making better hardware and software. And so in our model, when we build better hardware, our customers automatically get it. We think that applies the same with software. So when we build command, all of our customers are just going to get it as part of the service they have with Meter, without anything else to be added or negotiated or kind of pulled through. So it'll be for all of our customers.
Awesome. That's good to hear. A good getting good value out of their products and seeing the development come across and the whole platform itself. I
Yeah.
think that's something that we all like to see, especially for a service like this, and greatly appreciated by a lot of network engineers. Now, where can people find more? Is there a special web page they should go to? I know you mentioned the webinar
Yeah.
in September.
Yeah, it'll all be available at meter.com, meter.com/command. Super easy to find, and all the information will be available there. I know, Royal, this is the first time you saw it too, and our platform. Feedback, what do you think? Hit me.
I think it's very useful, especially for someone who, or a team that's very lean and you need to get things done pretty quickly. I know as a network engineer, you get hit up left, right, center about doing this, doing that, configuring certain things, and being able to just have a little prompt there to have you do it for you, and then be able to create the graphs. It actually makes you look a lot more professional to be able to create those graphs, or even be able to say, hey, I created a dashboard for you. Here you go. Here's the link. You can view it all, and do it very quickly. Cause I'm used to seeing these things get created, weeks later. Right. And by then it's like old data, or, it was, last time that happened, but we now shifted gears and went this direction. So you wasted time trying to get that all going. So I think gives a better view of IT to everyone else when someone can create a solution and be able to present it to them pretty quickly and be able to troubleshoot things quickly. And I think it'll be a good win for the IT department.
Cool. Yeah. Would love more feedback as you look at it too. But thank you so much for having me on and letting us show Command that's coming out August 21st. And again, available at meter.com/command.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, and be sure everyone to hit up that webinar to see what that's about, and be sure to check out the YouTube video if you're just listening to the audio only, just to see what command looks like. I think it was pretty neat how Anil was able to say, create this graph, and then he just literally dragged it to a different pane and said create a dashboard, and then there it was. So be sure to check that out at cleartosend.net. And I want to thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Anil, for joining us on this episode.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.